Boar's Head is bringing a slice of Japan to the deli. Introducing Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken. Tender, slow-roasted chicken breast, coated in our signature teriyaki glaze, where ginger, garlic, and a hint of brown sugar meet for a flavor that's both sweet and savory. New Boar's Head Ichiban Teriyaki-style chicken. The bold flavor of Japan. Now at the deli. Only from Boar's Head. Compromise elsewhere.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
No-hitter for Arrieta.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
So,
Or clear for a minute so I can write down the damn time.
It just got weird.
With Ted Hicks.
Everybody wants to be Bartolo.
Todd Vandenberg.
The handsomest man on the entire goddamn tour.
And Lee Vowell.
Folks, look around. Anyone who's not singing in the choruses is a racist.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball Beer and Barbecue with Todd and Lee. Ted is on vacay. Like us on the Facebook, follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ, and read us on our blog site, baseballbeerbbq.com. We will talk at the bottom of the hour with J.A. Sherman of SB Nation's Welcome to Loud City site about the NBA Finals. You can also hear this program and all the wonderful programs, or a lot of the programs of the Happy Hour Network on NGSC Sports, I-95 Sports Network, Beck Sports Page, RF Sports, XRP Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes Radio, Arena Sports Network, and Todd. Who else do we have to thank on this lovely Saturday morning?
Friends, let's dial it down from the hardcore rapid talk chat of Lee. Let's go slow. Let's talk about your laptop, why it ain't working for you, baby. You know what you got to do to fix that? Call Computer Repair NC at CJ Computers NC on the Twitter, 919-653-8496. They will fix your computer, they will fix your dog, they will fix your relationship. Really just your computer.
Yep. That was awesome. It kind of reminded me of a bit from Marshawn Lynch in 60 Minutes. So this is one little snippet of his 60 Minutes on Showtime interview talking about his basically his running style.
We went to his house one time, and he told me something like this. He said, "It's 4th and 1. The running back coming through the hole. I'm going to kiss that in the mouth." That's what he told me. Smell his breath.
So what does that mean to him?
If you just run through somebody's face, a lot of people ain't going to be able to take that over and 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 over again. They're just not going to want that.
Think there's a deeper metaphor there?
Run through a face, then you don't have to worry about him no more.
So that's Marshawn Lynch. He will be missed.
I've learned one lesson already. I've learned a lesson already. When you're talking about Marshawn, take the over.
That's right. Yeah, he wanted to get that across, obviously. So it's a good interview. By the way, a little on-air technical stuff. Todd, do I sound too loud or too soft or anything? I'm okay?
Oh, you're never too soft, my friend. Never too soft.
Okay. Last week when I listened to the show, I was a little bit too loud. So I was just curious if I was too loud. So, anyway, on to the real stuff. French Open, Novak Djokovic, little-known player from, I believe, the Ukraine. Might be wrong about that. He has now won his 12th major. He's from Serbia, of course. He won his 12th major. He's won all 4 of the last ones, so not a Grand Slam because it's not in the same calendar year, although that's not out of the realm of possibility. He moves on to Wimbledon and to the U.S. Open. If he wins Wimbledon, then he goes on to the U.S. Open. He would have a chance at winning 6 straight, which is ridiculous. But definitely a calendar Grand Slam. He got over the big hump, winning the French Open for the first time. He had 3 other attempts before that in the finals and had lost, kind of upset last year against Wawrinka. First set, he came across, it looked like he was just really nervous, really playing tightly. And then
yeah, he did.
And then, in those last 3 sets, even at the very end of the final set, he seemed like maybe he was tightening up a little bit. But, man, those second and third set, it was just like classic Djokovic tennis. And, I mean, honestly, one of the best players, obviously one of the best players ever, and when he's playing at his high level, it's hard to imagine really anybody. I mean, the shots that he makes, I'm not talking to anybody now playing. I'm talking about anybody ever playing. Maybe not on French, but if you get the guy playing well at Wimbledon or on the hard courts like the Australian, and he's playing well, there's the argument to be made that he is the best of all time on those surfaces when he's playing at a high level. But just some of the shots he was making, you watched it as well. Some of the shots he's making in the French Open, it's just like,
oh yeah,
motherfucker, it's like Jesus. I mean, I can't make one of those shots. And Murray played really well. The thing is, he played great in that first set. He didn't really fall off. It was just Djokovic stepped his game up, and there was no answer because nobody has an answer in today's game for Djokovic when he's playing at a high level.
That's what I was going to say. Murray was playing terrifically in the first set, and his level of play didn't drop. Djokovic just picked it up. I think you're dead right. And Murray showed that in the fourth set. I mean, Murray played pretty steadily, even though he was like demolished in the second set. But he was pretty steady all the way through. And I agree. I think Djoko got a little touch of nerves again. Had a couple of hiccups in those last couple games. Obviously, other than the final game, which of course he won. But all credit to Murray because Murray was playing great, and Murray, of course, was playing for his first French Open win, but it wouldn't have been quite as historic, obviously, as Djoko winning the Serena Slam, as they used to call it.
No,
which probably won't be calling it anymore, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, exactly. They may be calling it the Muguruza Slam at this point. She's 22 years old. Played well. She played really well last year. Made the final of Wimbledon, I think, wasn't it Wimbledon? And she lost to Serena.
Right.
But she just outright beat Serena. Did Serena have? She had some kind of leg issue, but she didn't make any. She did not herself. And we talked about this last week. We hope that because it was going on while we were having the show, and we were able to mention that hey, Muguruza has beaten Serena, and we mentioned at that time that we really hope Serena doesn't make. Any comments like, I lost because of this injury or this thing, and she doesn't normally do that, and she didn't do that after the match that I saw.
No.
So I saw some other mentions as far as, she had a leg injury or whatever, but I didn't. And one of the articles said she was noticeably injured. I was like, I didn't see that, because I went back and watched it later that day, and I was like, I didn't see a noticeable injury. Did you?
No, I didn't even see her pride noticeably injured. I mean, if anything, that would have been it. But, when she loses, and it's extremely rare that you hear, like you said, it's extremely rare she makes any excuses. And she does less so than most athletes, let's put it that way. Much less so. She just got beat. Muguruza is, right now, she's like the new improved Serena. She hits really hard. She's strong. It's a similar game, and she's how much younger did we talk about? Isn't she like 15 years younger or something?
12 years. 12 years younger.
Like, that's huge. That is huge in tennis. That's huge in most sports, but in tennis, that's ridiculous. And, it's as we had talked about in the tennis scene many moons ago. Age is finally catching up to Serena, and by no means am I implying, she's done. She's not done. I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see her come back and win Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. Not a bit. But it's going to be harder for her now at this point. I don't think she's at the point anymore where she just steamrolls through tournaments, which is that's how Father Time goes. So she's been a terrific champion. I'm sure she will be a terrific champion again in another tourney. But this French Open, it was Muguruza.
It was, and she deserved it. She had early on, she had some issues, but as the tournament went on, she was stronger and stronger, and it really wasn't. At this point, it wasn't really a surprise that she beat Serena. Not saying she's a better player than Serena, but on that surface, and Serena is beatable, and she's proven, and she hasn't won a final now, and it's been since Wimbledon of last year, right? Because she lost the U.S. Open, didn't win the Australian, didn't win the French. So.
Which when you say that about Serena, it's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with her? She hasn't won a Grand Slam final in almost a year. Oh my God!
Yeah.
But for Serena, that's the level of her achievement. It is like, what's going on with Serena? For anybody
yeah,
else,
she's bouncing
like,
off that Steffi shield, isn't she? She's just bouncing off the Steffi shield. She's one away, and the Steffi Graf shield is like, bang.
Oh my gosh! You know who
Maybe
needs
she
the
needs
Steffi shield?
Well,
yeah, exactly.
You know what Serena needs? She needs to be taking whatever Sharapova was taking. So, I mean, if she gets, if she starts taking that and wins a few more titles, by the time that she's found out, she'll be retired. So who cares? Anyway, so I'm joking, obviously, but Sharapova got a 2-year probation. The WTA wanted to make it 4, and they kind of settled on 2. And, of course, Sharapova says she will still appeal. I mean, she's still young enough where she's going to come back and be able to, be a big part of the game. But now she's going to have that stain with her forever. Her career. And she's not, you get to be 29, which I think is what she'll be, 29 or 30 when she comes, if she's actually out the 2 years and comes back. It's hard to imagine her really winning any majors at that point. Is she 29 now?
That's what it... okay, it looks like she is...
That's just 27 or
this article says it's 20... Well, this one says it's 28, but it's a couple months old. I do wonder, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you think she's done? If the 2-year suspension is upheld, and again, 30 is not old, but in tennis, it's ancient. And especially coming off a 2-year layoff, obviously she can pick up a racket, but that would be a weird suspension. They burn all your rackets and they watch you all the time, so you can't pick up a racket. But, she won't be in competition for all that time. That's plus the whole question is she's been taking meldonium. How much did that really help her? Because now she obviously won't be able to take it. So it's I'd say there's a really good chance if that 2-year suspension is upheld. I'd say there's a really good chance she's been on the court for the last time.
Yeah, I think you hit on it. One important aspect is the fact that if she is off for 2 years, I mean that's 2 years she's not playing high level competition, so she's going to have to bounce back. 2 years, that's a long time in tennis. I think she's going to come back. I think she has to for her brand, if anything else. Because I mean now it's like I don't think this is the way she can leave. I think she has to try to come back, and maybe she'll appeal and it'll go down to a year. A year's not 2 years a long time in tennis. But another person who played a long time, Gordie Howe. Amazing how long he played, and at the level he played at 22 seasons of 20-plus goals. No player will ever come close to that nowadays. Just, it's funny because Wayne Gretzky, of course, Gordie Howe passed away yesterday morning. He'd had quite a few problems with strokes lately and dementia, late stages of dementia. He was 88. So it wasn't a surprise that he passed away. And just like Ali, they both been ill. But, Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky had a tweet yesterday saying, it's sad to see not only the greatest hockey player to ever play, according to Wayne Gretzky, but also, more importantly, the nicest person I've ever known. So I thought that said a lot. It's because, I mean, obviously Howe had the Gordie Howe hat trick. You get the goal, the assist, and the fight.
Right.
But everybody always says he was totally different than off the ice than on the ice, and even he says that. It's not like it was a game he was playing, but he wasn't the biggest guy, but he was really strong, and he wasn't small, but he was really strong. And I mean, if you can use intimidation on your behalf when you're playing a sport, why not use it, right? So I wish we had an applause button because we'd like to applaud Ali last week and Gordie Howe this week, and it seems like, unfortunately, we have somebody different every week that is an icon in whatever they do and has passed on. Ali obviously was iconic in a lot of senses, not just boxing, but civil rights.
Right.
Gordie Howe obviously wasn't really involved in civil rights, but he did help hockey in America a long way. So, I mean, he did things on his own. So
Gordie Howe, the most amazing thing to me about Gordie Howe is he was a professional hockey player at the age of 52. 52. You ain't going to see that again. I mean, oh my god.
And still playing well.
And that's the thing. A productive. Exactly, an extremely productive hockey player at the age of 52. It wasn't like some gimmick where, oh, he'll go on and they'll give him 2 minutes on the third line. It's like, that's just incredible. That is incredible to have that kind of skill, to still be that good. I mean, the guy he came in when he was 18, right? So he played as a teenager in his 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. Like,
right.
Holy cow. Incredible. Yeah.
And it's just because of the rule that he had to be 18 at the time. He was good enough to probably play earlier. In an era where there were obviously a lot fewer teams, and he played for the Red Wings, and they were, if they played in any other era except for the era that the Canadians were just crazy good in. They still won 4 Stanley Cups, but we're talking about a team that could have won a lot more. I just got this headline on my phone from ESPN. It says Roger Federer lost 2 match points before dropping 3-6, 7-6, 6-4 to Dominic Thiem. Did he win the match or lose the match? Is that confusing to you as well? It's like he lost 2 match points before dropping, and then the score is that he won. So maybe the 2 before dropping. Thank you, ESPN, for that. So anyway, and one thing I want to say about Ali, you said he had maybe the fastest hands. I have to beg to differ, because have you seen that commercial with Alec Baldwin and Jason Schwartzman playing ping pong? Baldwin does not move his hands. Those are the fastest hands. It was even Schwartzman says you didn't even move your hands. Well, it's just crazy. You have not kept up with your comic books, because DC is in a reboot from the New 52. Now it's DC Rebirth, and it turns out that Alec Baldwin is the Flash. So, is that true? That'd be awesome.
That would be so awesome. I would buy that comic book yesterday.
So MMA.
The Flash giving the he's the Flash. You got to talk about the Flash. You got to talk about the Flash giving the speech in Glengarry Glen Rocks. But it's so fast you can't hear it, so that'd be great.
That's true.
Yes, and continue, sir.
No, I was MMA, so I know you wanted to talk about Brock Lesnar, and Kimbo Slice also passing away. That's, again, not really a surprise, because he had some health issues as well, right? So you want to talk about those two subjects?
Yeah, I'll talk about Kimbo first. And obviously it doesn't merit the attention that Ali or Gordie Howe does, because he's not nearly as big a figure. The reason it merits attention is because, to me, and what most people have said, is like he really created himself through viral videos and got to be very internet famous, as they say, from these backyard brawls. Got a deal with the UFC. I mean, he was not, by no means was he an accomplished MMA fighter, but he didn't pretend to be. He worked really hard to become one. At that late stage of life for a fighter, he put everything he could into it to become better and to become more well-rounded. He did the best he could at that age. He probably could have been exceptional if he'd started, when he was in his teens or even 20s instead of when he was, like, I think 37 maybe. I mean, that's a long time to wait to start that. But a huge personality, and from everything you see, he was an exceptionally nice, friendly guy. Did not meet the Kimbo Slice persona that you saw in the ring and hyping matches all the time. I mean, Lebitard had a decent relationship with him. I don't mean like it could have been indecent, but fairly close as far as that goes. And they showed some clips on his show of Lebitard's show. I think it was from last year. And for some reason, they're in a kitchen, and Kimbo Slice is in the background cooking. Just, like, hey, don't mind me, guys. And it was just, that says more to me about the guy than his record as a fighter. So it's, like I said, in no way is it have the impact of Gordie Howe, Muhammad Ali, but to his family and to his friends, obviously it does. So that's a sad thing to see, a guy who, from every report, was an extremely nice, good person. So that sucks. On to someone who really sucks in my mind, not as a person, but Brock Lesnar. I am so pissed that they reached out to get Brock Lesnar for UFC 200. I get it from the draw aspect, because that probably added, I don't know, at least 150,000 buys, if not 250,000 for the pay-per-view, because he's a name. He's a past champ. To me, he was a paper champ. Man, Lesnar's 5-3 in the UFC. So how exactly does that translate to the enormity of his name? But it does, because it's all hype and marketing in his case. Not all hype and marketing. Yes, he's a decent fighter. He's not a great fighter, though. He never was. I mean, one of his fights was against Randy Couture, who at that point, God, I think Randy was about 47. And Randy is a guy who fought a lot of his fights at light heavy. He's a guy who could drop to 205. He would fight at 220 as a heavyweight, and Lesnar's 265, and he has to cut to get to that. So that's ridiculous. When Lesnar finally met guys who could throw, he didn't like to get hit in the face. He found that out. And he dropped his last 2 matches, and suddenly he was retiring. He was like, yeah, whatever. And this is a one-off deal. You know, he ran off to the land of, you don't get to hit me in the face because the script says don't hit me in the face. So whatever. I'm glad to see Mark Hunt is fighting him. Mark Hunt is one of my favorite MMA fighters. His record isn't particularly great. He's 12-10-1. But when you look at his losses, Josh Barnett, who's a top heavyweight, Fedor Emelianenko, who at the time was hands down the best heavyweight, probably the best heavyweight fighter ever in mixed martial arts. Alistair Overeem, I mean, he lost to some beasts, Junior Dos Santos. He's also beaten some beasts. His last 2 fights, he beat Frank Mir, Antonio Silva, Big Country Roy Nelson, Stefan Struve, Jake Congo, Ben Rothwell. I mean, he's been in there against everybody, basically, which is how you wind up with a 12-10 record. I mean, is he one of the all-time greats? No. But he is one of my favorite fighters because he brings it all the time. Now, one of his issues is he gasses in fights sometimes. He has gone 5 rounds before, and I believe this is a co-main event, so this should be a 5-round fight. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, because Lesnar, of course, he hasn't competed in 4 or 5 years in the ring. So talk about, octagon rust. So it'll be interesting. Hunt has come out and thrown bombs already at Lesnar, saying he juices, et cetera, et cetera. So there's not going to be much love lost, I'm sure, when that comes around. That's July 7th, UFC 200, and that's going to be one of. Hopefully, it's entertaining in the fact that Mark Hunt knocks Lesnar out, and it takes Lesnar about a week to wake up. I would love to see that, because I don't like his persona. I mean, he was always, and I get it, but to me, Conor McGregor has the same kind of thing, but Conor McGregor backs it up. Even with the loss to Diaz, he's fighting 2 classes out of his weight class. That's ridiculous. But Lesnar didn't have the game to back it up. I mean, whatever. I mean, they basically set him up to be champ, and he managed to defend it once, and then, boom, he lost twice, and he's gone. I mean, compare that to Hunt, and Hunt's lost 10 times. He decides, well, I'm done. It's like, he just comes back and knocks out the next guy. So, and his last 2 fights, he's won in the first round. So, it'll be interesting, and I would love to see Lesnar rush and Hunt drop him with a knee and then hammer him with one of those fists of God that he throws. And like I said, watch Lesnar fall asleep for about a week. That would make me very, very happy. But giving Lesnar credit, he's going to show up in incredible shape. He does have a crazy, crazy good gas tank. He doesn't really gas, considering his size, and he's very, very fast. I believe it was Division 3, but he was a national champ wrestler, so he does have a lot of tools, which is appropriate because he is a tool, and that's enough.
Big Country is always a great nickname. I don't care what sport it is. So, NHL Finals, of course, the San Jose Sharks actually won on Pittsburgh's ice the other night, and so they actually go back home still trailing 3-2. But if they can win at home, then it's Game 7 back in Pittsburgh, and it's anybody's finals. And it's funny because the Cleveland needs to do the exact same thing. I don't think there's comparable talent as we've seen in the finals, because there's going to be a blowout no matter what happens. But most likely it's going to be Golden State.
Yeah.
But it's still another exciting. Every game gets, except for there's only been one game in the finals that hasn't been decided by one goal. So it's hockey at this level, Stanley Cup level, fast. But skill level is so great, just with defense and goaltending, that we still have really fairly low scoring matches for 2 teams that can really, score a lot of points if they want to, and they just haven't. So, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with the next game, and if San Jose can take it back to Pittsburgh. And then we've got Game 7, which is what everybody wants in any sport, right? In the finals, no matter if you care about which team you're rooting for or not. It's Game 7. That's what everybody looks for. So
yeah,
that's the NHL.
And to touch on that a little bit more, you mentioned how tight the series has been, and we'll touch on that in depth. We'll touch on that in depth. That makes no sense, but we'll talk about that more when JA comes on. But just how full of blowouts and basically how bad the playoffs have been overall in the NBA, and you got the NHL, and everything's a nail biter, and in the NBA, almost everything is a blowout, and it's interesting, and it's kind of sad that, I mean, what are the ratings? Offhand, I would guess the ratings for the NBA are probably 3 times as big as the NHL.
That's a good question.
Finals.
We should look that up, actually.
So,
no, I do not have that, but that's a great question. Because we talked about it, and the reason it's a great question is because we talked about it before. With I'm joking, obviously, but yeah, I mean that was the question going in. It's Pittsburgh and San Jose. What are the TV ratings going to be? So there's solid fans like in any sport. You got MMA fans who are going to watch no matter what. You have NHL fans.
Right.
So it just says TV ratings Thursday Stanley Cup rises for NBC. So they did go up a little bit. But it also mentioned Beauty and the Beast was on something. So I'm not really sure if you're comparing the finals of your sport to Beauty and the Beast, some random show. I'm not sure what that says. So of course that's just zapit, zaptoit.com. But yeah, it looks like at 8 p.m. on Thursday, Game 5 of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, the viewers in millions were 4.56 for the finals. The Big Bang Theory, which was a rerun, had 6.59. So,
yeah,
don't know what that says, but it is what it is. Also, Legends of Tomorrow, 0.91, so not even a million people watching that show on the CW. Don't know what that is.
I'm not one of them either. It's a sucky show.
Is it a sucky show? Maybe it shouldn't be on at all then. So,
I don't like it. But anyway, politics.
Yeah, politics. You don't like politics. So let's just say that we don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because we do have J.A. Sherman joining us in just a few minutes to talk the NBA Finals. And maybe we'll pick back up on politics on the opposite side of that. But a couple of things happened. Hillary Clinton got the nomination, or at least got a number of delegates needed to cement herself as the nominee for the Democratic Party. First woman to ever have that nomination for one of the 2 major political parties that we have to be elected from in this country. So good for Hillary, and good for everybody, good for humanity. Even if you don't like Hillary, that's still a step in the right direction. Bernie says that he is still going to, he thinks there might be a contested, I love Bernie, but Bernie, stop, man. You got to stop it at this point. I understand what you're trying to do, but and you want to have your say at the convention, and you should have that say. But at the same time, you got to help us out as liberals and get behind Hillary at this point, because she is going to be the nominee for the party. I know, again, as much as I like Bernie, he doesn't like to lose, and he needs to let this one go, because there's, as much as I want him to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, it's just not going to happen. And Trump, of course, it'll be interesting to see more and more. We're starting to get into it as far as Trump versus Hillary and crooked Hillary and whatever that. It's just ridiculous. I just want to say this. I can't believe that I live in a country that if Donald Trump gets elected president, that we as a country have digressed that much that we have elected Donald Trump president. So I'm just hoping and praying, well, not praying, but I'm just hoping that does not happen, and that we're wiser. And people can dislike Hillary, but come on, she's a wiser choice than Donald Trump.
Let me throw in a quick little fact, and I'm glad you clarified that Hillary is the first female nominee of one of the 2 major political parties, because some people took exception to that as like, oh, she was not the first woman to ever run for president because of Dr. Joel Stein, on and on and on. It's like, right. The first woman to run for president, and I knew this about a year ago, because she happens to be, I think, the great-great-grandmother of the daughters of one of my best friends, Mary Lawrence Woodhull, was Victoria Woodhull, who ran for the presidency of the United States in 1872. Women couldn't vote in 1872. She ran for the presidency of the United States under the Equal Rights Party. Her veep was Frederick Douglass. So,
oh, nice.
That's
awesome.
There have been women pushing the glass ceiling a long time before Hillary.
Right.
I thought I would just throw that in.
Awesome.
So, a shout out to the Woodhull girls. Victoria
that's
started
awesome
a long time ago.
It's awesome for a couple of reasons. First of all, that she was running when she couldn't even vote, and secondly,
Right.
Frederick Douglass was her veep. So that meant, I'm assuming that she got to talk to Frederick Douglass, which would be awesome.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Hey,
of course, yeah, that could have been the precursor of how Mr. Trump is going to run his, because he probably won't talk to his VP either. So why should he?
Well,
he can't tell him anything.
Frederick Douglass could have been sitting there. Hey, did you know you're the VP, but a VP of this part, Equal Rights Party? And he might have been like, I had no idea. He could have been like, but why am I the VP? Like, I am equal rights. Hello.
Yeah, that's the thing I thought was interesting. It's like Frederick Douglass, and he was the VP. It's like, how forceful was this woman's personality that's like, well, I'll be the president, and you will be my VP. It's like, interesting.
She was the Elizabeth Warren of her day, I'm sure. So
apparently she was, seriously.
Well, and that's not a bad thing. I don't mean that in any bad way.
No.
Elizabeth Warren is awesome. So, in just a bit, we're going to talk to J.A. Sherman. Hopefully he's not having any problems connecting to us with Blog Talk Radio, which is giving us all kinds of issues this morning. So, anyway, we will be talking NBA Finals in just a minute. So, I'll throw this out before Sherman joins us. I mean, I know we're talking 50-50 chance when it's Hillary versus Trump, but just commonsensically, there's no way Trump's going to win, right? And that's not rhetorical. I'm hoping you have an answer to that.
I think, well, I was checking to see, J.A. is going to join us in about 5 minutes, it looks like. Okay. He just emailed and said he's running behind a little bit, so 5 to 7 minutes. Anyway, unfortunately, there is a chance he can win. I'm not going to say there's no chance, because that's what I always thought, but I thought there wasn't much chance he could win the Republican nomination. But he did, quite handily. There are lots, and by lots I mean millions of disaffected voters, and that's who he's reaching out to. And he's doing a terrific job of connecting with those voters. So far, as far as appealing to his base, he's a terrific politician, which is entirely different from being a statesman. I want to make that clear. But, he absolutely has a chance. If the Bernie voters don't turn out for Hillary Clinton, or if there's not a groundswell somehow for Gary Johnson or Dr. Jill Stein, which realistically probably won't happen, and I'm not dissuading anyone from doing that, but don't sit
But you're being realistic,
out,
and that's
saying.
The right way to view it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
That's the realism we have, but it is the fact. It's the case in hand that one of these two are going to be elected president. Actually,
right.
Changing the subject kind of back to what we were having, the NBA Finals, the Game 3 on Wednesday night drew 13.65 million viewers. So that, and you said it's probably 3 times. That is basically 3 times as much as the NHL Finals. So you had that spot on. Jimmy Kimmel Live had a game night. I'm not sure if game night is that the Jimmy Kimmel Live before the NBA Finals game? I'm not sure what that is. Must be the lead-in. So we had Jimmy Kimmel Live 7.65, which was the second highest rated show. NBA Countdown 8:30. All of this on ABC, so it must be just preludes to the Finals game. 6.91, and everything else was distant. So NBA dominated its night on a Wednesday. NHL did not come anywhere close to dominating its night on a Thursday. So, and also, I was about to say, I'm curious what the ratings are in Canada versus the United States. I'm sure there's a huge difference. And I also started to say, if Donald Trump does get elected president, my company actually has places to work in Canada as well. So, we may be covering the Toronto Maple Leafs next year at this time. So it'll be interesting.
Lee's new favorite team, the Maple Leafs,
right.
the Blue Jays, the Argonauts.
That's right, the Argonauts. What? Hey, excuse me. The quarterback of UT, didn't he play for the Argonauts? Guy who played like he came when Kiffin was there. He was a backup for a couple of years. His girlfriend died of cancer, like right before he played. Jonathan something, Crompton. Is that his name? Jonathan Crompton.
Yeah,
I think he played for the Argonauts. Yeah. Anyway, so that's interesting. So, is it? I'm not really sure. So, but anyway, yeah. I mean, I'm such a NHL fan that my parents-in-law were just recently in Canada. They took a train all the way across from Toronto to Vancouver. And my first question when they we're leaving Toronto on our way to where Medicine Hat, not Medicine Hat, I'm joking, but they went to see Wayne Gretzky's birthplace. But I said, did you go by Parry Sound? And they said, no. What is that? And I was just like, well, Parry Sound's this kind of big area near Toronto, but it's where Bobby Orr was born. I didn't go into that, but because they would have been like, who's Bobby Orr? But anyway, I mean,
it's been a long conversation. Like, well, Bobby Orr played from.
Yeah, this is actually, you talk about a long conversation. I was, did you go by Parry Sound? This was all in text. Did you go by Parry Sound? No. Where is that? I was like, it's near Toronto. That was the end of the conversation. They were probably thinking, why don't we care about Parry Sound? A lot of players from Parry Sound. That's right. I mean, it's huge. So anyway, this part of the program is brought to you by the Canadian Tourism Bureau. Go to Parry Sound. It's beautiful this time of year. All that trout, catfish. I don't know what they have in Parry Sound. It's near the Great Lake.
San Pedro? Is it the San Pedro de Macorís of defensive players for the National Hockey League? Would you say that?
Glad you brought that up. We should have the Baseball Beer and Barbecue show from Havana now that we can use that show, hopefully.
We should.
As a cultural thing and go there.
It's a cultural outreach. It's research, it's journalism, and we can bring beer. And therefore aid the Cuban people.
That's true. The question I have is, they don't play baseball in Havana, though, do they? They don't like their baseball, do they?
How true.
I mean,
how true.
It just makes sense. We should do Baseball Beer. We're live from the Nacional Stadium here in Havana. That would be awesome. That would be like a dream come true. That would be great.
And it's not like it's not like barbecue came from the West Indies either. So like, we should definitely go. It's like it's all there. Oh my God, it's all there.
It is.
Let's go.
I mean, it's perfect. This is why we started this show, because we knew one day that there would be a 1.5 year window before Donald Trump became president that we would be able to visit Cuba.
You're right. We better go. We better go this year.
Until we decided to bomb it with Donald Trump. So.
Bomb with Donald Trump? I'm all for that. I'm all for dropping Donald Trump from about 50,000 feet onto Havana. That would be fun.
And Bob Dole was on NPR. They had an interview with him yesterday. And they said, you're backing Donald Trump. And he was like, yes, I'm backing Donald Trump. And no, why are you backing Donald Trump? He was like, because I'm a Republican conservative and I have to back whoever. It was like he was like, he was not necessarily glowing about Donald Trump. He was like, I've got to vote for whoever the party puts forward. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, you're not going to argue with Bob Dole. It's funny because they brought up during the interview. They brought up, I can't remember the word he used, but it was like, we didn't have just our way or the highway kind of thing. It was when I was a senator and the president came to me, I guess it was Reagan. He said, hey, maybe we can, I want this bill I want 100% on. And Bob Dole says, I'll do my best. And then Reagan says, no, I'm just joking. 70 will be fine. And it's like, wow, that doesn't happen anymore. So anyway, but something that does happen is the greatness of J.A. Sherman on this show, thankfully. So Todd, do you want to tell us a little bit about our guest?
Absolutely. J.A. Sherman has been on the show at this point, I think, 87 times, and 87 times he's been fantastic. He's an editor at SB Nation's Oklahoma City Thunder site. Welcome to Loud City, which is like the best name for a website ever. Jay, thanks for being on again.
Hey, gentlemen. Thank you for having me to talk about something that maybe is not Thunder-centric, But I still love basketball. I still love the finals, so I'm happy to discuss.
Terrific. The finals have been pretty interesting so far, that's for sure. Let's just jump into it. Tyronn Lue, did he screw up by keeping his starters in for almost the entire second half last night?
That's a great question, and I would have to give the answer of no. And honestly, I can look at it the same way that I looked at the way the Thunder played the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, where you have to put your team in the best possible position to win all four quarters. And unfortunately, if you don't have the kind of depth that the Warriors have, and let's face it, no other team does, then you got to stay with your starters longer to be able to maintain that competitive edge. And this is the one thing that the Warriors do that no other team can do, is that by relying on a bench that goes 11, 12 deep, they can eventually wear down the other starters simply by maintaining status quo throughout the game. And that's a competitive advantage that they have, and they know how to use it. So, no, I can't fault Lue for staying with his starters, because if he was willing to drop in Dellavedova, for example, a little bit longer, especially in the fourth quarter, that Warriors lead might have jumped to 10 or 15 very, very quickly, all but eliminating them from having a chance to win down the stretch. So it didn't pay off for the Cavs, obviously, but I think just like the Thunder had to do, you have to put the players on the court that give you the best chance to stay competitive.
Right. LeBron, he drove to the hoop in the second half. Seemed like every time he actually drove, there were at least two defenders waiting for him. So how can he take over the game, which a lot of people want him to do, when the Warriors seem to be set to stop him at all costs? And the second part, the follow-up, regardless of how many defenders are there, he's supposed to be the best player in the game. Shouldn't he be able to take over the game anyway?
Well, I think if we were talking about the LeBron James of 2012, 2013, 2014, then the answer is yes, because during that 3-year stretch, he really had no weaknesses, physical nor mental. He was just the perfect basketball player, and all the statistics bore that out. But he's not that player anymore. And, which is not to say that he's not amazing. He's still not a top 3 player in the league. Of course he is. But he's not going to be able to conquer a team as good as the Warriors or the Thunder or the Spurs by himself anymore, because he doesn't have the full capacity and full facility over the control of his game that he used to have. And the thing that's missing now is his mid-range and his long-range jump shooting game. And I think Jeff Van Gundy, one of the color commentators for the TV broadcast team, has hammered on it really consistently, and I think quite accurately, that James has to make jump shots if the Cavs are going to have a chance to win, because it's the only way that the Cavaliers will adjust their defense to guard James, to cause their gravity to pull out towards him, which will open up the passing lanes, open up the cutting lanes, and all sorts of other things. But if he's not making that shot, and more specifically, if he doesn't even have confidence to take those shots, and right now he doesn't, he's passing up open shots, then the Warriors defense doesn't have to adjust, and they can just sit back and wait for him to attack the rim, where he's not finishing at a high rate right now.
Yeah, and it's almost like even if LeBron played great and played a perfect game, is it really just a matter that Golden State is too good regardless of what LeBron or Cleveland does?
Well, I think we did see a pretty darn good game in Game 3. We saw probably one of the best games that we're going to see out of LeBron at this stage of the season for the rest of his career. That might sound a little harsh, but that's how difficult it is to be that well-rounded and complete at this stage of the season, at his age, with the amount of minutes that he's played over his career. But I think the reason why the Warriors struggled so much in Game 3 is they looked really detached from the moment, and the Cavaliers were basically playing for their entire season at that point. They didn't match the intensity. They didn't match the focus that the Cavs had. But in Game 4, the Warriors honestly didn't play that great on either end of the court, especially in the first half. But if they can maintain and just stay within striking distance, then they put themselves in a position to win, just like they did in Games 6 and 7 against the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. And that goes back to the depth of their bench, to the consistency of their defense, to their understanding of how to spring their shooters most effectively. And then they've had some bonus guys step up as well that the Cavs have not had. Hat tip definitely to Richard Jefferson for basically crawling out of the crypt to have an impact series when Kevin Love went down. He's been really strong, but he's still not as good as Harrison Barnes, who's had a pretty good final series, even though he's not getting a lot of recognition. He's outplayed the Cavs at that position, and because of that, that's one of the reasons why the Warriors are now up 3-1.
And again, we're talking with J.A. Sherman of Welcome to Loud City, Oklahoma City Thunder site. You mentioned staying within striking distance, which hasn't happened a lot just generally in the NBA playoffs. Why do you think there's been so many blowouts in almost every series, especially in the finals?
Well, to me, it's not that unusual. I've been a fan of the NBA for nearly 30 years, going back to the Magic Bird era. And one thing that I've learned over the course of those years is that in every really competitive playoff series where the teams are relatively evenly matched, and I don't think there's a great degree of difference between the Cavs and the Warriors in this series, is that in a long series, every team is going to get blown out at least once. And then there's probably going to be 3 competitive games, and then the rest are sort of a toss-up. But the reason why you always see at least a blowout for either side is because, like Steve Kerr said presciently before Game 4, is that these games can turn on a handful of plays, and you never know when those plays are going to arrive, and you don't know how long they're going to last or how many they're going to be. But, for example, in this game, obviously the Cavs were up in a strong position at the half, and then they were up 8, and then suddenly they find themselves losing, but only by 2 going into the fourth. But then over a stretch of about 4 to 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, those handful of plays manifested, and now instead of the Warriors struggling like they did in the first half, they're up by double digits. And it was just a good production on offense as well as consistency on defense, and the Cavs not doing those things concurrently that allowed them to push that lead to double digits. And that's really all it takes. And if you stretch that, like if that happened in the third quarter versus the fourth, that 12-point lead might have blossomed into a 20-point lead very easily. And we saw that happen with the Warriors against the Thunder. I think it was in game 2, where it was a very closely contested game. And then the Thunder dropped their guard for about 4 minutes, and it went from, I think it was nearly a tie game to the Warriors up 20. And that's how quickly games can turn when the stakes are so high and they're so evenly matched. So it's not surprising at all to me to see these kinds of blowouts, even against some of the best teams that we've ever seen.
And you mentioned before, and a lot of those turnarounds have happened with the Warriors bench. Their second line, so to speak, in line. And you had mentioned before how the Warriors, they go 11 and 12 deep in the rotation, which they certainly do. Do you think we're going to see a trend to try to copy that, going with a complete team with deep benches like Golden State instead of the big 3 mindset like the Cavs, like the Heat before them, like we've seen so much in the NBA?
Well, I think every team is going to pay lip service to, we want to have a solid bench, because especially during the regular season, that allows your stars to be well rested for the playoffs and best equipped. But they don't often talk about it in terms of the playoffs, because your rotation shrinks usually to 7 players, maybe 8. That's what happened to the Cavaliers this series. That's what happened to the Thunder. And even the Spurs, who have notoriously had a deep bench, even they found themselves grasping because their bench was not getting the job done against the Thunder in the semifinals. And so every team says, yes, of course we want it, but actually assembling it is a much greater challenge. And the reason why I think the Warriors were able to do it, and of course, if you listen to Joe Lacob, he's going to say, we're just light years ahead of everybody else. Well, maybe in some ways, but they also were extremely, extremely lucky because they never could have predicted that they could have signed Steph Curry at a bargain 2 years before he became MVP. and then he would by far supersede those salary expectations, become a 2-year consecutive MVP. That Klay Thompson would become the best 2-guard in the league, and that a second-round draft pick would become probably their most important cog in the middle, and Draymond Green. But because of those levels of good fortune, they were able to go out and sign guys like Iguodala. They were able to pick up some of the other guys like who am I thinking? Leandro Barbosa, Sean Livingston last year, who had been sort of become marginalized amongst the league. They were still looking for a place to kind of finish out their careers, but the Warriors figured out how to plug them in, and they had the financial leverage to do it. So through a combination of luck and forward-looking and also team identity, they were able to do something that is very, very difficult to do. And by contrast, the Cavs thought they had a deep bench too, but eventually everything, when you go through the fire, the dross gets burned away, and you're left with what you truly have. And hopefully it's diamonds and silver, but sometimes you realize it may be just a little bit of mud in there too.
And you mentioned watching Magic and Bird. Todd and I are old enough to remember the greatness that was George Mikan and the Minneapolis Lakers. But where would you? Let's assume the Warriors go on and actually win this finals. That's not a stretch. But where would you historically rank these Warriors? Not like 1 to 10, but are they a top 10 historically great team?
I think you have to put them there if they close this thing out, as I expect that they will. Simply because, unlike some naysayers, especially from generations past, I think the league is in a really good position right now. I think you're always going to have some bottom dwellers. That's just the nature of things. But if you look at the NBA and especially the East this year, they're, for lack of a better term, their middle class of teams has gotten really strong. Now, I don't think their top end is as strong as the West. But they've raised the overall level. They collectively had a better record than I think the playoff teams that got in the West, and so that's a good sign. And because of that, every game is going to be competitive. And for the Warriors to string together a historically significant kind of season, especially after winning the championship last year, and to be a repeat title winner, that's really remarkable. And I don't know if that can really be ever replicated again. Of course, never say never, but that kind of 2-year run, I mean, that's really, really amazing. If you go back to the Lakers, they might say that the Shaq-Kobe era was as dominant. I might give you that for one of those years, but I think the league was incredibly watered down at that point, and so they did not face good competition in the finals. I think the Pacers were probably their best competition in their 3-year championship run at the early 2000s. So I think with the competitive level as strong as it is, with the stars as good as they are, and certainly we've never seen any player like Steph Curry come into the fold, and he's leading the way. I have to put them at the top against any other of the great teams that we talk about.
Wow, that is high praise and worth it. So you mentioned what the Warriors were able to do as far as bringing in some people to add to this team. What changes will these specific teams see next season? Do you think, like Kevin Love, should he be moved? LeBron James' option. Of course, his option is just up so he can make more money when the CBA kicks back in. But Harrison Barnes, is he going to be gone? And talking about the Thunder, Kevin Durant, probably no way he ends up with the Warriors or the Cavs, but, chances that he actually changes teams.
Well, to take those in order, I think with the Cavaliers, I think for LeBron to even consider leaving Cleveland again it would do such a harmful, it would be so harmful to his career legacy. I don't think he could ever do that. With regards to Kevin Love, that's an interesting case because I was one of the few people going back 2 years ago who really hated that deal when they brought in Kevin Love in exchange for Andrew Wiggins, whom they drafted before LeBron showed up. And the reason why is because I looked at the NBA landscape and I said to myself, there's no way that the Cavs are going to win the championship, at least in the next 2 years. And so I thought for them to actually have a chance to win the title, they had to commit to a 3-year plan. And the best way to do that is to bring a young, talented kid like Wiggins, bring him underneath the arm of LeBron and have LeBron turn him into a great player. And then Wiggins would then sort of absorb and soak off some of the load that LeBron would have to take on as a team leader. And that would make them into a truly elite team that could contend with the teams in the West. But with Kevin Love, I mean, he's very good. I think he's worthy of all-star consideration because he does a few things at an elite level. But, I just toss this out there, and let's see what you guys think. I think he's the same player as Enes Kanter, but with a little bit better three-point shot. No, I'm serious. That he's a better three-point shooter. He's not as good in the post, and he's not as good in the pick and roll. About the same on the rebounding level, but they're basically the same player. They do a couple things at an elite level, but the holes in their game really limit their ability to have an impact on both ends of the court, and that's what we've seen this series. Love he's been completely marginalized, and that's not even because of the concussion issue, which hindered him in the last game. Or two games ago, excuse me, that he's just not playable against the Warriors. And he would probably have a hard time getting on the court against other elite defensive teams as well that can score out of the power forward position. And so, I really look at that as that was a really bad move by the Cavs. I understand why they did it, but looking over the course of the long term, it wasn't a good move for me. To the Warriors, they're going to lose some people after this season. I don't think they're going to keep Harrison Barnes. I think he's just going to demand a too high of a price tag. And, I don't think he was a max player to begin with. He's a pretty solid role player. But he should be able to leverage that into a good contract somewhere else. But I don't think they'll be able to retain him. I think they'll start to lose some of these other pieces like Ezeli. Will probably be too expensive to keep. And that's what happens to every championship team is that after winning, that you start to lose some of those key pieces, some of the depth that helped you get over the hurdle year after year, especially this year when the bench has become one of the deciding factors. And so next year's team will not look the same as this year's team. They'll still be very good, still be a title favorite, but that's just the nature of the cycles of the NBA.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And Todd said that the entire bench are free agents between this year and next for the Warriors. That sounds crazy. But again, you've been great. We always appreciate your insight. You're one of our favorite guests. I'll just throw that out there. But thank you again for being on. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for being on. And where can people find your work?
You can always find us on the web at welcometoloudcity.com. Check us out. Even though the Thunder are not playing, we're still cranking out a ton of great content, looking at the offseason, looking at obviously following the Kevin Durant situation, and some other fun and interesting things as well. You can find us on Twitter at WTLC. Check us out on Facebook as well, and join in. And I know you'll have a good time. You'll learn some things as well.
Awesome. Well, J.A. Sherman, you've been great as always, so thank you and enjoy your weekend.
All right, thank you guys. Have a great morning.
Yeah, thank you. And like you said, he's incredibly good. It's the depth of his knowledge. He's so well-spoken, so articulate. He's passionate. He's everything we're not, which is great.
pretty much. I was about to say he's good with words, but I ain't so much. I ain't so much good with words.
When he's talking about benches, and he goes through and you burn away the dross, and then he steps up his game and he says, and you find sometimes you hope to find diamonds, but usually it's just mud. It's like, that's something that you write after you think about it for a month, and then you finally come up with that phrase, and it's like, it just pops into his head. It's like, he's awesome. He is terrific to be on. Which
if
is
you were
our
able
way
to
of thinking.
transition like he does into basketball for Kevin Love, the Cavs would have won the series already. So
yeah, exactly. And he makes me even more happy because I don't like Kevin Love's game. Like, he's okay, but to me he's a bad fit on that team. And you know how that's how I feel about the Giants, who don't like to drift off and hit 3-pointers. It's like, I don't like that game. Get inside and bang, dude. But that's not his game, and that's okay. Yeah, he doesn't, and
I just wish that Kevin Love. He's not. I just wish Kevin Love fit in as well as his uncle did with the Beach Boys. I think it would definitely change the Cavs team. So it would be one of those things. So let's move on to baseball.
Leader with the Beach Boys, sir.
A leader. Is he a leader? Is that what they're calling this? The Beach Boys, like a cult or something? He's one of the leaders. Right?
Oh, it's a cult, all right. It's a cult.
It's just Brian and everybody else. So anyway, baseball. Which is, it's funny because it's almost exactly an hour into the show, and it's baseball, beer, and barbecue, and that's what we're talking, baseball. So I'm going to throw this out there, too, because I don't know if I put it in your outline. The MLB draft. Now, a friendly network that reruns our show actually had a show prior to the draft about the MLB draft, which to me is like, it's okay. But I was listening to Jerry DiPoto on 710 ESPN Seattle. They interviewed him on Brock and Salk yesterday. And they asked him, hey, how many of these guys, do you actually get to see before you draft them? And he was like, I might know 2 of them. Even he doesn't know who they are. He totally has to trust the scouting director. So this sport is set up obviously way different because, as he pointed out, even if we draft a good player, it's going to be 2 to 6 years later after we draft him that he's going to actually be a guy on the Major League Baseball team, on the team. So it's crazy. So since 2000, the reason we don't talk more MLB draft on this show is because we want people to listen in. So starting with 2002, let's talk the MLB draft. I've never seen any of these kids, but one of them wrestles an alligator down in Florida. I think he must be pretty strong. But anyway, so 2002, Brian Bullington. Brian Bullington. Third one
favorite player ever. Third favorite player ever.
2003, Delman Young, which he played. 2004, Matt Bush of the Padres. 2005, Justin Upton, who, he's made an okay career for himself, but he's, to be the number 1 player pick, you'd think he'd be an all-star every year. He's not. 2006, Luke Hochevar he wasn't from Tennessee at that point. He was spent a year in independent league. He's turned himself into a pretty good relief pitcher. 2007, they actually got one. David Price, great pitcher. 2008, Tim Beckham of the Rays. 2009, 2010, the Washington Nationals had the number 1 pick. Now they picked 2 schlubs. One was named Stefan Strasburg, never heard of the guy. And the second guy was Bruce. I think they misspelled it. Bruce Harper. Looks like it's Bryce. That can't be right. Anyway, so that was 2010. And then 2011, Garrett Cole from the Pirates. He was good up until yesterday when he pitched it. And no, I mean that's it. Could be the ones we've seen recently. I'm not going to. It was Dansby Swanson was 2015. He's still in the minors. Brady Aiken's still in the minors. They both might be fine. Mark Apple again. All these guys. The 2012 to 2014 got picked by the Astros. Carlos Correa might be a great player. Still, that was 2012. It's 4 years later, and though he might be a great player, he hasn't been up long enough to proven that he can be consistently a great player. So it's one of these things like, why are you going to have a show about the MLB draft when you honestly, the Mariners had 40 picks in the draft, like everything.
Yeah. And
how many players you got? How can you knowledgeably? You're going to have to look it up. Well, that guy says this about this player. It's not a knowledgeable conversation. And even if
there's a couple other ways.
Yeah. Sorry. One more thing. Mike Piazza. What round did he get drafted in?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Ken Griffey Jr., a couple other ways to look at it. Ken Griffey Jr., the first-round pick to ever make the Hall of Fame. The first. Mike Piazza, he's in the Hall of Fame too. He got picked in what round, Lee? The 62nd round.
62nd. Oh, I thought that was 56. So 62nd. Oh, that's crazy.
62nd round. There were 1,300.
Why did he get picked, though? He got
yeah.
picked because Tommy Lasorda was a friend of his dad. Yep.
A favor. They did his dad a solid. Oh, we'll pick your kid. 1,389 guys were Major League Baseball decided there's 1,389 guys in 1988 alone who were going to be better Major League players than Mike Piazza. That's why we don't cover and not, by all means cover the draft if you want to cover the draft, but that's why it's not an event like the NFL draft, like the NBA draft, because it's so hard to tell what impact these guys are going to have. I mean, more power to the teams who drafted Bruce Harper and Steven Strasburg and Chick Corea, who's badass on keyboards, by the way.
I looked it up. Well, and just to throw this in, the side of that is a bunch of these guys who are all-stars never get drafted because they're international players.
Right.
So it doesn't even go into the draft. It doesn't matter. So
it's almost a crapshoot. So when you've got a guy, you finally find a guy who is a first-round pick who finally makes it to the Hall, which obviously that's the biggest achievement possible. But a guy who was drafted 62nd as a favor, he's in the Hall too. That tells you how hard it is to judge baseball talent. It's incredibly difficult, which is, to me, another one of the reasons why I like baseball, why it's my favorite sport, because it's so hard. It's such a difficult sport. There was footage a couple days ago of Charles Barkley in a batting cage. He couldn't even dribble a ball out to the pitcher. I mean, he missed a few times. I mean, man, he looks terrible, as Charles would say.
Terrible.
And as they pointed out, this is one of the best athletes ever. This is a guy who led the NBA in rebounding. He's 6'4". You don't do that without being an incredible athlete and having a lot of want to, as has been thrown around in the NBA Finals. So, yeah, baseball's pretty hard, and it's also pretty hard to figure out who's good at it, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, that's why we don't really talk a whole lot about the MLB draft, because it's part of a whole big culture that, it's you got the internationals, you got the draft, and then some of those guys who get drafted in the 62nd round end up being Hall of Famers. So it's a crapshoot, as you said. So Manny Machado got hit intentionally in the ribs after hitting a home run. I've never, it's always one of those things, why you do that in baseball. It's like the guy hits a home run, whatever, which is, it's not a good thing to do. Don't hit the guy. The guy hit a home run, sorry. He hit your pitch. You threw it up there, unless you intentionally did it, and then you shouldn't hit the guy anyway. Don't throw at the batter. Sorry, he's just doing his job. You were trying to do your job. He did his job better. But anyway, Manny Machado actually rushed the mound. So Manny Machado is actually, breaking news, going to fight Brock Lesnar in the next MMA. Who wins?
Oh, Manny, hands down. Much faster hands. And he's got a better gas
younger.
Tank. and younger. He's got the power stroke going. To your point is they did their job better than you did that time. The flip side would be if, let's say, you strike out 3 times in a game, which happens plenty of times. He struck out 4 times in a game. Why doesn't the batter rush the mound and sock the pitcher because he did his job? That never happens. Never happens. No one charges the mound because they struck out for the 4th time in a game. It's the same thing. It's like I can get intimidation and pitching inside, but to deliberately hit somebody, to me, that's not part of the game, not the intentional thing. The brushback, sure, but to just plunk somebody because he did his job and you didn't, and it's like, you're the one who's the fool. You're the one who got lit up. It's like, I don't know, throw the ball as hard as you can up in the air and stand right under it and let it hit you in the head. I mean, you're the one who deserves to get hit, dude, not the guy who did his job. You're the one who screwed
pretty
up.
much.
Give it to your shortstop and tell me, bean me, dude. Just fire at me, crack me right in the skull because I deserve it. That's what should happen. The intentional stuff is ridiculous.
So last night the Giants and Dodgers played each other. Johnny Cueto is having a really good season, 2.16 ERA even after yesterday's game. 8 innings, 3 hits, gave up 2 earned, no walks, struck out 8, no home runs. Didn't get a decision. Clayton Kershaw won the game. He's 9-1. Basically the same kind of game. Gave up 2 earned, pitched 8 innings, no walks, 13 strikeouts. We now have 4 pitchers basically, since whenever, the modern era, that have had 10 or more strikeouts without giving up a walk. Randy Johnson had 21 of those games. Clayton Kershaw has 19. I'm not going to let people know a surprise at the end. He has 19. Of course, he's got a long way to go. Actually, Curt Schilling had 26 and Randy Johnson 36 for a guy who had control problems early in his career, so that's pretty impressive. Denard Span, leadoff hitter for the Giants last night, 0 for 4, struck out 3 times, faced 12 pitches. That means basically when Kershaw...
He should have rushed the mound, and he should have punched Kershaw in the face for that. What the hell?
That's right.
Be a man.
Exactly, because it's like one of those things where it's, you know what, it's like he's 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, so that's 9 pitches right there. So he had, that's just crazy. His right field mate, Jarrett Parker, actually was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts, but at least he faced 16 pitches. So he was not just swinging away or swinging and missing or whatever Denard Span was doing. So, it was one of those games where the Dodgers have to win if Kershaw's on the mound. The Dodgers have been playing a little bit better. They're 4 games over. Kershaw 1.56 ERA, so obviously having a rough year for him. So looking at the standings currently, the Baltimore Orioles, led by Steven Strasburg, a game up over the Red Sox, also pitched their pitcher Steven Strasburg. He pitched for every team. I don't know if people are aware of that. The Blue Jays playing better, 6-4, even though 6-4 not great in the last 10, but they've been definitely playing better. They're 3 games over 500, 4.5 back. The Yankees. Do you realize that CC Sabathia is 4-4, but his ERA is 2.28? I think that's, is he bouncing back, or is it just one of these things where he'll have a good stretch and then he'll be awful again?
He'll be awful again. No, actually, I think he's been a quality pitcher forever, and I think he's bounced back. I think he's not going to be at that ERA, but I don't think he's going to collapse and wind up at over 5 either.
Right. This is a guy we're talking about winning 300 games, projected possibly at one point. There's no way he's reaching that. The Red Sox, plus 77 run differential. The Indians, who we're going to be seeing in August, 3.5 up over the White Sox, good for the White Sox. They just picked up James Shields. It'd be interesting to see if that makes much of a difference. White Sox have fallen off. They're just a game over 500 now, and they were leading their division for a long period of time. The Royals, 2-8 in their last 10. Which is weird. They're still playing 500 along with the Tigers, who don't seem to want to play much above 500 in any season, or below 500 for that matter. And then the Twins, they seem to be a Major League Baseball team. So the Rangers are 3 up over the Mariners. Mariners beat the Rangers last night. Dae-Ho Lee, who, when you guys hear our intro, that last call is a Korean call of Dae-Ho Lee. This guy's fun. If you want to tune in for the Mariners when Dae-Ho Lee's playing, do it. He's about the shape of Prince Fielder. When he played, he's a little slightly bit smaller. The guy's hitting 301 with 10 home runs, part-time work, really, really, really good hitter. And he's actually pretty agile out there for first base. It's just they platoon him with Adam Lind. So the Astros, 5 games under 500, 9 back. And then the Angels and Athletics. Well, the Nationals lead the Mets by 2.5, 2 in the loss column. The Nationals plus 67 run differential. I watched a lot of their game last night. Steven Strasburg struggled early, but then had some strikeouts, settled down, and got the win. The Cubs lead the St. Louis Cardinals, actually. The Cardinals have, I feel like I'm calling a horse race. The Cardinals have taken a post. Anyway, they are now 5 games over 500, 9 back, only 9 back, which is not bad when they're, the Cubs are plus 145. But the Cardinals are plus 65, hanging in there, 7-3 in their last 10. No chance of pitching the Cubs at this point. 41.
You mentioned quickly about the Cubs. One of the biggest reasons they're plus 145 is not the offense; it's the pitching. I don't know if it still holds true, but at least a few days ago, they were the only team with the entire starting rotation with ERAs under 3. Every single, not the average, every single pitcher is under 3. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Right. And they had 22 of the 52 starts. This was 2 days ago. 22 of the 52 starts in Major League Baseball for the season where a starting pitcher has pitched 7 innings or more and given up a run or less. 22 of those were by Cubs starters. So it's just that's not what we expected. We expected them to hit a lot, and they still do. But really, it's their pitching. If their pitching falls off, it makes you wonder if. They've only given up 169 runs. That's ridiculous. 169 runs. The next closest
I think
team.
The Padres did that last week. I mean, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's and they still had a winning week. The next closest team is the Mets with 196. So that's interesting.
It is interesting because everyone talks about the Mets rotation, and the Cubs are that much better. You know, to this point of the season.
Yeah, exactly. The Reds, 15 games under 500, 19 games back. The Giants lead the West by 3 games over the Dodgers. Dodgers 6-4 in the last 10. Giants 4-6. The Rockies, Padres, and Diamondbacks. Now, the Diamondbacks are doing the same thing the Padres did last year. They made a lot of changes to their team, but they're lousy. They're 11 games under 500. So how much did really getting Zach Greinke help them, paying them that much money? Don't know.
Yeah, none.
Not really. So anyway, did you vote for the All-Star game already?
Of course I did, sir. This is actually my second vote. I voted I think like 2 days after they opened voting, which is obviously things changed a lot, and I'll vote again when it gets closer. But I did indeed vote. I'm sure you voted. You probably voted 35 times, didn't you?
Well, I voted for Snoop Dogg the first time I voted. He was awesome on the mound throwing out the first pitch the other night. It was better than 50 cent. Better than 50. But not too much.
Totally going with
So yeah, I don't know. So who did you, if you have this in front of you, who did you vote for?
I do.
In the American League?
In the American League, I went with Eric Hosmer, who's having incredible power numbers for him. At first, obviously, no surprise.
And I went with. Go ahead. No, I went with. Well, what we'll do is we'll do it base by base,
right?
So position by position. So I went with Miguel Cabrera at first because he's having a really solid season. I think you could either way you're okay. But
and the only reason I didn't vote for him because I didn't want to be the homer and I wanted to acknowledge Hosmer's having a terrific season. So yeah, Miggy will go, but Hosmer should be in there too. Second base.
And I think you started to say at second base we both have Cano. I think you started to say that.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be your boy because Jesus, how can you not? He's at 50 ribbies. He's a second baseman.
Yeah, 50 last week.
Yeah. Right, exactly. At short, I have Zena the Warrior Bogarts. Yeah, I think his first name is Zena.
Yeah, I also have Xander Bogaerts.
Yes.
And this may be easy. This may be boring for people because we may have a lot of the same people.
And probably will. At third base, yes, it's the world's greatest fighter, Mr. Machado, of Baltimore.
Yeah, I have Machado as well.
And catching, your boy, Mr. Jerez.
Oh, okay. I went with Wieters actually on that one. With Matt Wieters because he's also having a solid season.
Oh, and by the way, I'm talking about Salvador, not the other Perez.
No,
so,
yeah,
not
yeah,
the other
I know.
Yeah. And Wieters is.
You were talking Tony Perez at catching, just because you have to throw that in.
Wieters is easily a really good pick too. So, and let's go to the outfield. Nope, sorry, forgot DH. To me, this is the easiest pick. It's Big Papi. And you won't vote for a DH because
DH. Well, I was thinking, whoa, what are we talking about? But yeah, I also went with Ortiz having such a great season. Yeah, I went with Ortiz.
Oh, he's had an amazing season, and I hope, and I'm not being facetious or sarcastic. I really hope that something doesn't turn up in a test later on because he's having a season as if he was, and unfortunately that's just how you think these days. But tremendous season. So let me retract this statement. Right. He's just having a hell of a season. Let's go to the outfield. I start off with one of his teammates, Jackie Bradley Jr., our friend, the Incredible Hulk, who resides out there in the eastern, northern reaches of the United States, will like that because that's one of his boys, Jackie Bradley Jr.
Go ahead and name all three. We'll go
and then Mike Trout, because Mike Trout is always there. But Mike Trout, he's having an off season, and he's still, I think, third in OPS among outfielders. So, terrible season for Mike Trout. And then Trumbo, one of my favorite blacklisted writers ever, Dalton Trumbo with the Baltimore Orioles. And he's having a great season.
Yeah, he is. And we had one of the same outfielders. Guess who the same outfielder is?
I would believe that would be Mike Trout.
It's Trumbo. I didn't go with
Is it
Trout.
Trumbo, really?
Yeah, it's Mark Trumbo, because the guy is putting up huge numbers. I mean, you can't say no to Mark Trumbo early.
Right.
He may have a horrible second half, but that's who I went with. And I went with Mookie Betts and Lorenzo Cain.
You're. It's hard to argue with any of the five, I think. So.
Right.
Totally.
So, National League, go.
Now we'll go. No, National League, go. Mr. Tito for the Cubs. I'm going with Rizzo because Goldschmidt is nowhere near the player on the road as he is at home. He's getting the benefit of it, so I'm going with Rizzo.
Yep, I went with Rizzo as well.
This will probably be different. I'm going with Ben Zobrist. I think he's been a big part of the change for the Cubs, having an excellent season. Plus, he can play anywhere. He could probably be the general manager, too, at this point, and sell hot dogs. So Ben Zobrist for me at second.
Well, actually, I have now lost my ability to see who I voted for. Which is not great radio, but I'm sorry. I only have the American League in front of me. My computer is not wanting to show me exactly who we have. But be just a second, and I'll get that pulled up. So let's talk about Ben Zobrist. Because
Ben
really,
Zobrist,
no, because really, Zobrist, he could be a guy who plays any position, actually. Okay. I went with Josh Harrison of Pittsburgh, second base.
Okay, and who did you go at first?
Rizzo. I also
Who did you go at
Rizzo.
first base? Rizzo. That's right. I'm sorry, you did say that. Yeah, Harrison is definitely a good pick too. I mean, he's panning out. He's finally playing one position instead of 7 like Zobrist typically would used to do. So yeah, he's having an excellent season. Shortstop, I think we may have the same person. Pete Seeger plays for the Charlie Dodgers.
I thought you may go with Story because he could also be a valuable. He would be a worthy addition to an All-Star team. I went with Corey Seager just because of the difference he's making on the Dodgers at this point in the season. Without Corey Seager, the Dodgers probably wouldn't be playing 500 ball.
And the other thing is Story is not the same player on the road. I mean, he's not bad, but I mean he's definitely benefiting from Coors. So that's the reason I went with Seager. Third base, I went with a gentleman who he is benefiting from his home, but he's also a hell of a player on the road. It's Nolan Arenado. His stats on the road are excellent.
And he's just defensively, he's the best third baseman in baseball.
Oh, my God, yeah. Right. And really, I mean, this overall, both teams, excellent defenders. And I went with Mr. Wilson Ramos with your Washington Senators.
Yeah, me too, actually.
So
you had a home run last night. I know, because we all have the same players. The question I'm interested in is who did you vote for the National League designated hitter? I'm joking. Because you can't vote. If anybody hasn't voted, you can't vote for it.
I went with who's the guy who used to play for the Tigers? No. Okay. On to the outfield. Mr. Cespedes, who, again, he's picked up where he left off from when he first started with the Mets last year. It's like he's been a beast for your New York, Washington / Los Angeles Mets. And Mr. Bryce Harper, who's really dropped off a lot from his ridiculous pace in April, but still a hell of a player.
Yeah,
and
let's hold on 1 second, because I voted for Harper as well. The thing with Harper is that if you look at his average, do you know what his average is? 255. Do you know what his on base percentage is?
It's still probably close to 400.
It's over 400. So
is it over 400 still?
Yeah, it's over 400. And so the thing with Harper is it's not when he hits the ball hard, obviously, because he has still a lot of home runs. But he's not just out there swinging for the fences. He's actually, it's almost one of those things with Big Frank, Frank Thomas, and the fact that, sometimes his average suffered, but he was so selective. He was almost too selective when it came to hitting pitches. So with Harper, he's batting 254, but his on-base percentage is 405. That's 150 points. It's ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous. 150 points higher, but he's getting on base, and he still has 13 home runs and 37 RBI.
Excuse me, sir. I believe you're wrong on the on-base percentage. I believe it's actually 410.
Oh, is it 410? Did you just look it up? So it went up. His average went down.
It went up.
So, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just anyway. I had Bryce Harper as well. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
And And my third outfielder is Mr. Ozuna for my Miami Marlins. He's having an excellent season. He's having the season they expected him to have, a couple of years ago. He's turned into the guy they thought they would get. He is the team they thought they were.
Just to catch everybody up on Ozuna's stats, he's batting .236, 3 home runs, and 6 RBIs.
And that's who they thought they were getting. So there you go.
That's why. It's like he's meeting expectations. That's really all you can ever ask of anybody, right? So it's one of those.
That's right. He's hitting
John
326.
Who's batting 128.
326 with a 923 OPS. So yeah, Ozuna's having a good season. And your outfielders, sir?
My outfield, besides Bryce Harper. I actually had Ozuna on it as well because I thought 236. That's pretty good for a Marlin. And then it is one of those things. So he's worthy. And then I had Vowell from Cincinnati, who we actually saw, but just because of his power numbers, 17 home runs, 41 RBI. Not a great average, but on that team, if he had better players around him, it's funny that neither one of us actually went with Dexter Fowler, who started off really well, and
I
still
had a really hard time. Not going with Dexter Fowler over Ozuna. And I finally said, I'll be a little bit of a homer, but yeah, Fowler definitely could go on that team. You're not going to go wrong with any of the guys we've mentioned, even as the also ran as an all-star. So, although Fowler, I don't think will be an all-star, I think he'll be an all-star. So, should be a fun game as it always is.
Yeah, Chu, for the Texas Rangers, is on the ballot. He's batting 188, no home runs, and 1 RBI. So, if you want to vote.
Let me go back to an interesting thing that I noticed on the ballot, and is like, I don't understand why they did this. It was at catcher. Let me go back to that. Let me scroll to the catchers.
Was it Joe Mauer? They had Joe Mauer.
Joe Mauer. No, not Joe Mauer. It was the incredible talent that is Mr. Cherinov with Texas. He has 18 at-bats.
18?
As a catcher. 18. 18 at-bats. And he is on the ballot as the catcher from your Texas Rangers. I'm not quite sure what is going on there.
Let's be fair. Okay, so he has 18 official at-bats. Did you know he's walked 67 times? That's
true. He has walked 67 times.
So.
He's 18 at-bats. He's played in 6 games. Nicholas has played in 10. Wilson has played in 21. Holliday has played in 25. You would think the guy who's played in 25 games would be the guy that they would list. His OPS is 738. But he's a catcher. Wilson's played in 21 games. OPS is 791. Nope. Chirinos, who has played in 6 games, 18 at-bats. He has collected 4 hits in those at-bats and walked once for a sparkling 222 average. Wow. I don't understand that at all. Maybe everyone else is dead, so he's the only active catcher they have. I don't understand that. How he managed to be on the official ballot. It's like, what?
I guess they had to project someone. I guess they make the ballots out ahead of the season, I guess. That's the only thing I can figure. Because some of those people, shouldn't be on the ballot. They really should limit it to...
I've never seen anything crazy like that.
There should be some criteria, because you can't, like Chu, obviously has been hurt. 0 home runs, 1 RBI. I mean, he shouldn't be on the quote-unquote official ballot. So, a couple of things real fast. We did hit on Mikado, but I want to discuss that for just a second. Leading the National League in batting is Daniel Murphy. Neither one of us had him on our ballot, which is interesting. Ozuna is second, and Christian Yelich is third. So 2 Marlins, second and third. And then David Ortiz, second in batting average. Xander Bogaerts, 349 lead. They 1 and 2 in the American League. Mark Trumbo has 20 home runs. Todd Frazier, who can't seem to hit anything but home runs, is 19. Robinson Cano, 18 already. Nolan Arenado has 19. Duvall, 17. RBI, we have David Ortiz with 55 and Robinson Cano with 50. And Nolan Arenado is 53, a 10 ahead of Rizzo, which is interesting. AL wins, we have Chris Sale. We don't get to vote for pitchers, but Chris Sale has 10. Chris Tillman and a whole host of volunteers have 8 behind him. And the National League wins, we have that guy who I've never heard of, Stefan Strasburg, 10. And then Kershaw, and again, a whole host of volunteers, 9. And then in the ERA, Stephen Wright. I'm not making that up. Stephen Wright of Boston Red Sox is 2.09. Clayton Kershaw, 1.52. Arrieta hanging in there at 1.8. And Madison Bumgarner, 1.88. And then WAR AL, we have Bogarts, Altuve, Cano, Trout at 3.3. George Springer, of all people, 3.2. And then in National League, Arenado, 3.4. And several players at 2.8, including Fowler. And Zobrist is 2.6. So that's interesting. But back to Mikado for just a second, because I don't think they've handed out a suspension. Could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But one thing we both find intriguing. Oh, okay, they have. So one thing we both find intriguing is as far as the pitcher versus the hitter and games of suspension. Because a lot of times when you have the hitter, they might get suspended for 5 games or 10 games, depending.
Right.
The pitcher also gets the same amount of games. Well, if he's a starter, he's missing 1 game, and the hitter is missing 5 or 10. What can they do to actually change it? I mean, can they they can't say 5 starts for a starting pitcher, because then you're taking the starting pitcher out for a month. That doesn't seem fair either.
Right.
So how would you change it?
Well, the way they did it in this case, Mikado got 4, and got 9. He got 9 games, which is in essence 2 starts.
Well, he's the one that it's his fault, so he should get more. But I don't know if they did it by starts or whose fault it was for games. Well,
but then again, he get hit, and maybe they're looking at it as like, but you don't have to react. You don't have to charge the mound. Maybe, to me, that's apparently what they looked at it like. Is like, okay, yeah, you plunked him, Ventura, so you're missing 2 starts. But Mikado didn't have to charge the mound, so they gave him 4 games. I don't agree with it. I would have given them the same punishment, because to me they're equally responsible. As like Ventura started it, Mikado didn't have to respond, but they got an uneven punishment. No matter how you look at it, 4 games, 9 games, 2 starts. Who instigates it? I mean, it was the pitcher that instigated. He started it, so it's like an auto accident. But for this guy hitting the other pitcher, we don't have a fight. You know what I'm saying? So it's his fault. If anything,
he's the proximate cause
of the accident. Should get at least the same. Well, you've really changed since you've taken over your career. No, the pitcher should get at least the same, if not more, because like you said, he caused it. He is the cause of the fight, and the pitchers never get the same punishment. And like you said, in a lot of cases, they'll get the same supposed suspension. They'll get, 6-game suspension both, which is 6 games for the hitter, and for the pitcher, that's 1. At least they gave Ventura 2 starts, in essence, with the 9-game suspension. But yeah, it's and there's been a lot of talk lately. Actually, your guy Agon talked about it. It's like they're all this talk about protection and concussions and and they've changed the rules for collisions at the plate and how to run the base paths. It's like, why don't they do something about pitchers hitting batters? Because they're absolutely defenseless, just like a second baseman turning a double play, just like a catcher trying to make the tag at home, even more so, because you're not waiting for a human to come in at 20 miles an hour. You're looking at a baseball coming in at possibly 100. Which was his point. Is like, why is that still okay in baseball? And it's an interesting question. I mean, it would change the dynamics of the game a lot. But, and he's talking about intentional. Obviously, he's not talking about if a pitch gets away. And then you've got the whole problem of, okay, how do you judge the intent? But they already are, so I don't see any problem with it. And I'm all for it. I don't see any problem with, okay, you threw a pitch intentionally, you hit a guy, you're missing 6 starts. 6 starts out of, that's a huge chunk of the season. Yeah. That's going to really damage a team. And they were talking about it on Mike and Mike, a little plug for one of our favorite shows, because we'd like to be as funny as they are. Not as good as they are, because that's not going to happen. And nothing's going to happen. Anyway, And they were talking about this, discussing whether or not they would have to go to the union and make that part of the bargaining because it'd be part of the CBA. And then they realized they just changed the rules. Obviously, they can change the rules when they want to. So, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they make this a change? And I think that it'd be a good idea. Just if you really are tired of the fights, hand out some big suspensions, and you won't see pitchers hitting guys intentionally. And because you can pretty much tell. You can pretty much tell when it's intentional and when the pitch just got away.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we always have been able to tell. So I don't really think that's really going to be an issue. It's like, seriously, suspend him for 6 games, the starting pitcher.
Right.
And if it's a reliever, and 6 starts, not 6 games. I'm sorry, make that clear. 6 starts, not 6 games. And the flip side is like if it's a reliever, it's like that's a 30-game suspension. Shouldn't hit the guy. You're not going to see it anymore. Clearly, you're not going to see it. They're going to suck it up and realize, as you said at the beginning, hey, the hitter did his job. That's on me.
Let me interject for one thing. It could be that we're looking at it wrong. It could be that we're looking at it from a team concept instead of a player concept. And the difference is, if a starter gets suspended for 5 games and a player gets suspended for 5 games, they're not getting paid for those 5 games. Whereas if you hold a starting pitcher out for 20 games, he's not getting paid for 20 games. You know what I'm saying? Because they're not getting paid; they're suspended. So maybe we're looking at it.
And then change it.
I mean, there should be.
Just say that they're paid for their off days, but they won't get paid for the starts they missed. And that, I'm sure, would have to be part of the CBA. There's no way that couldn't be done. But, I mean, they can do it. It can be done. If the players really don't like this, and most players supposedly don't, well, at least half of them don't like it, let's put it that way. The hitters don't like it. And I'm sure enough pitchers would go in for it. Like, if this is really a problem, then change it. Make it a grievous offense instead of, oh, here's another entertaining baseball brawl. So, to me, I would throw a little bit of an adjustment to it. I would say I would change it if they're throwing at the head. That would be much worse. Which typically, when they're throwing intentionally, they don't throw at the head because they don't want to kill the guy because obviously something bad could happen. If you throw at the head, then it's going to be huge. But again, usually that doesn't happen on the intentional ones. But if it does, that would be huge.
Yeah.
But the same thing, if the batter rushes the pitcher, you're going to same deal. It's like if the pitcher was going to miss 6 starts in this example, it's like you're going to miss 30 games as a hitter. That'd be about equivalent. So have fun letting your team down because you couldn't keep your head together. You couldn't keep your head in the game.
Almost literally, sometimes if you're the hitter. So
literally,
anyway, that's our show.
Exactly.
That's any final words?
Any final words is go not Trump.
Go not Trump, okay. And we will have, we're not going to be back Saturday, we'll be back next Friday evening, which will be interesting. So tune in then as we play our live show. So here's the outro.
The fans hoping to catch a little bit of the old-time religion right here, baby. With Junior stepping up to the plate. Here comes the stretch. And the pitch to Junior on the way. Swing and a fly ball hit to deep right center field. That baby is going to be fly away. The old-time religion lives. Junior does it. A 2-run home run. And we are tied at 3-3. My, oh my. Magic is back at least for a night.
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a drill instructor directing a musical. Town hut! Get those tap heels in line and let me see those jazz hands! Are you bundling your home and auto insurance through Progressive? Can you hear me through those sequins?
Bundle your home and auto through Progressive and save.
Left, 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 and step ball change.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates. Home insurance provided and serviced by other select insurers.
Hey, it's Flo, and this is my impression of a drill instructor directing a musical. Town hut! Get those tap heels in line and let me see those jazz hands! Are you bundling your home and auto insurance through Progressive? Can you hear me through those sequins?
Bundle your home and auto through Progressive and save.
Left, 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 and step ball change.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company Affiliates. Home insurance provided and serviced by other select insurers.